not where I start with producers. 50-50 publishing for sure. We don't start 50-50 on the masters.
Well, no, you as a label. I'm talking about artist and producer. If I'm in the studio, it's just the pure musical creation process. We're at 50-50 until there's a conversation with either the artist or the label. I always forget to take my allergy medication. What's going down? It's the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. My name is DJ Payne One, and I'm hanging out the podcast with my mediocre ass friend, Dame Ritter. What's going down?
What's going on, man? Oh man, this week I think we both need to wake up, perk up a little bit. I got a workout in this morning, so I'm feeling a little better. But I did want to make an announcement and just let people know that I'm no longer with BeatStars. I know that I was talking on this podcast about all the music and stuff and all the artists we were going to be working with. I may or may not go into it a little later, but the good thing is I have some other things going on, and I think that's just advice to young people that are getting into music. I feel like you should always have like a few things going, because you just never know what's going to happen in this industry. So I've anytime I talk to a young person that's just getting in, that's one of the many pieces of advice that I give them. So luckily I'm not sitting here twiddling my thumbs and I can kind of pivot. But I was excited to work with the artist that I was talking to, and it's just not happening anymore. So it is what it is. So yeah, but we got Aaron. So we do have Excellence back. I guess
Excellence has entered the chat.
Oh, okay, cool. So we got the full squad. We definitely want to talk about Glorilla. We want to talk about the Steve Lacy clip that was, I don't know if it went viral, but I saw it. Let's jump into the Glorilla stuff first. Anybody want to set the stage in terms of at least what we know? I mean, all we know is what both sides have posted on social media. We don't have any inside information. But Payne, maybe you should set the stage because I think you've probably gone through some of this before. I'm assuming, maybe not. Just in terms of like dealing with labels that want ownership of a song after it has already come out. Right. Well,
what I think, first of all, in just a general sense, I think, one, this is the song of the year, at least in terms of rap. I play it often. Tomorrow
is it? I don't want that to be a debate here, but is it? I mean, I know it's a big song, but I'm not gonna say only.
It's not a debate. Me and Aaron agree. You're outvoted.
I looked on Spotify. It has like 23 million streams, and that's very impressive. But I'm sure there's songs that have in the hundreds of millions.
In hip hop, the streets matter more to me than DSPs and anything. In the streets, they bumping F and F. On the radio, hip hop radio, bumping F and F. Ladies bumping F and F. Men, college kids, like I'm with Payne. You can't go anywhere without hearing this song. Like shout out to DSPs and whatnot, but for hip hop, to me, the biggest metric is the streets. And if the streets are rocking with it, then it's the song of the year. And I've never seen a woman's song since, honestly, probably Bodak Yellow go up like this. Because women, it's like almost like we have this glass ceiling in hip hop. I feel like men will rock with it until. And the first time I saw it burst like recently was Bodak Yellow. Like that was the first time. And there's been other great hits from women. I feel like F and F is like what Bodak Yellow was. And so on par to be bigger.
So why, I mean, obviously it's still going to have some runway, but I expected, when I went to Spotify, I thought it was going to at least be in the 60 million plus. Like Bodak Yellow is from what I understand, a diamond song at this point. I mean, granted, it's been out for years, but to me, that was like a way bigger song. And again, maybe this still has more potential, but this business could mess it up. Like it could mess up the trajectory of the song, so it doesn't reach a Bodak Yellow, right? Because I think if a label, the good thing about if a label does get involved, then they're going to be putting it in hella playlists and getting it a lot more exposure globally. So again, we still need to kind of set the stage. Like what happened? Like what's the issue?
I think it's sad, but it appears that there's a dispute over ownership of the song, and both sides are claiming, so both Hitkidd and Glorilla are claiming that the other person sold the rights to the song from under them. And they're basically both claiming the other did poor business. A lot of people jumped the gun and started commenting on it. You know, you have all the armchair A&Rs and execs talking about, yeah, well, she probably signed a 360 or this and that, you know, speculating themselves into a frenzy on social media when none of them know the music business nor the situation that actually went on between Glorilla and Hitkidd. I think the only real insight we got is from Hitkidd's manager, who actually spoke using terms that we understand, specific terms. And what he effectively said, correct me if I'm wrong, what he effectively said is that, like virtually all collaborations between a rapper and producer, it starts out as a clean 50-50 split. And Hitkidd has retained his portion, whereas Glorilla has signed to a label who in turn has, I guess, taken ownership of her master, and perhaps more than that. I'm not sure.
Well, let's not fall into the futuristic trap, right? Let's speak specifically about what potentially it sounds like, because that's not where I start with producers. Like 50-50 publishing for sure, but we don't start 50-50 on the masters. So I don't want to.
Well, no, you as a label, I'm talking about artist and producer. If I'm in the studio, it's just the pure musical creation process. We're at 50-50 until there's a conversation with either the artist or the label. And then you negotiate that away. But it sounds as though, to add, to give clarity, it does sound as though, based on what the manager said, that Hitkidd was operating in the capacity of the label at the time, of the distributor at the time, potentially fulfilling all those obligations. Because Hitkidd seems like one of those guys that kind of does everything. And there are a lot of people, I know videographers who do that. I think that's more common with this type of music, where you have a videographer that has a big YouTube following and just continues to post videos, like Lyrical Lemonade or like Laka Films or
So that's what. So do either one of you know? Because I know Hitkidd as a producer, a successful producer, but like when they partnered up, like why was he? Did he have a platform like Lyrical? Yeah. That's why he was doing. That's why he commanded. So that's why he commanded more percentage on the master side, because he has a platform. He's producing the song. He's like rolling it out. Like,
no, the reason that he has the 50-50 is because he owns the song. He created the song, then went to Glorilla Plus and said, hey, I want y'all to get on this beat. If you go look at the song, the first artist is Hitkidd, because he made it with the thought in mind. I see some women in the city bubbling up. Women don't usually get opportunities. And this is corroborated on multiple posts by multiple people. Hitkidd has been trying to collaborate with a lot of people in the city. So that song started out as his song. He wanted to put glow on it. And then that's why, so he owns the song. So there's, and that's on paper. If you look it up, Hitkidd owns the song. From there, his manager states that they licensed the distribution to CMG. And for licensing the distribution, I'm assuming that they took Glorilla's part. And I'm assuming that the label took Glorilla's part and was supposed to be passing through Hitkidd's royalties, because they licensed it so that they could take Glorilla's royalties for an upfront fee, right? That's what the manager is saying. And that is like what Payne said, makes a lot of sense, because he's the only one who spoke in terms that actually makes sense to a business person. He said a licensing deal. He said CMG stopped the payments, which makes sense, because if you license it and then you make a claim on the original rights owner, all of the money stops until the claim is sorted out, which the manager said to be done. So when Glorilla said, I haven't even been paid, of course you haven't. You took an upfront advance, and then your label Cloud of Fame a claim against the owner. So there's no money coming from that song. Like, you are only recouping off of whatever they take from you, maybe other singles or, you know what I'm saying? But also to FNF not being as big. I don't know if you looked at the remix as well. The remix has Lotto on it. So I feel like combined, the song is probably bigger than you realize it is. But that's on paper. That's what happened. That's what the manager is saying what happened. Hitkidd approached Glow to get on the track. Glow gets on the track, and the track is starting to go. So apparently Glorilla is saying that Hitkidd sold the track for $50K the first week out or something like that. My assumption is that he went and got a pub deal against the song, because they're saying he still retains the rights and still owns it, which is why there's a legal issue right now. But that's, the landscape that I understand. There's still some gray areas, but Hitkidd's manager, again, seems to be talking very clearly and not emotionally about it. And not to say that denotes that he's right, but I venture towards leaning towards him because he had all the facts, and then he was like, this is what's happening. And then he also mentioned a few things that I know to be true about the Memphis scene, which makes me feel like he's moving the most truthfully, at least, but I don't know.
So where do you guys think it goes from here? Like, it's just it just gets dragged out in court. You know, Hitkidd obviously maintains his ownership of the song if he's got the documentation, and then, you know, it just is what it is. Like, where do you guys think it goes from here?
Well, I don't think it goes to court. I know everyone's saying it's going to court, but all that Hitkidd said to even insinuate that was they're taking legal action. So my guess is right now it's just some kind of conflict, which is a technical term, right? Something goes into conflict. All the royalties are in escrow right now. Once it gets resolved, people will start getting paid again. So I don't think it's going to go to court. I think from what it sounds like, there's no real legal dispute. It's just a matter of getting everybody back on the same page. And what's sad is, you know, I look at not all of it, but some of the back and forth between Glorilla and Hitkidd. It's clear that they respect each other. It's clear that this is really just, and I've gone through this, I think it's a miscommunication. When I was working with an artist for whom I also feel like I did a lot, not so much marketing, but did the whole album, produced the whole album, mixed the whole album, handled the graphic design, handled the merchandising, handled so much. And then when it came time for the royalties to be discussed, suddenly it was a problem. It was like, I don't owe you anything. What are you talking about? You didn't do anything. So I don't think that's Glorilla's official stance. But when I look back on that situation, I think, all right, kind of similar to what you said, Dame, about when you were running the label and the Hobson situation arose. Whose fault was it? And could some of the blame be put on me, you, and Hitkidd in the regard that we just made an assumption that everybody understood the business? You know, when I was working with the artist, I made the assumption that you would know you were splitting things with me because I did so much. I created the songs with you and put in so much work. And then when it came time for the money to come in, I said, okay, recoup your costs and then let's split the money. It was like, oh my God, words like thief and slave master started coming up. I actually will say this. I respect the fact that Glorilla's not going personal with it. Neither of them are. I think as far as like, you know, people are trying to sensationalize it into a beef. I think it's a business misunderstanding, and shout out to both of them for, in spite of them taking their grievances to social media, not insulting one another on a personal level. So I think it's a matter of each party's label or respective management or all of the above to just really have a talk about what the business entails. I don't think either of them were on the same page when the song was created and subsequently released. they're damn sure not on the same page now that the song is taking off. And I imagine there are a lot of hands involved right now. And that can be confusing especially when you haven't communicated about what's going on. I'm sure everyone's excited because it's this viral hit. So much is going on. When do you really have the time to sit down and do the boring stuff when your life is so amazing? I think this is a cautionary tale for artists.
I mean, this goes back to the same shit, right? And like, I'm going through this right now with like, so for Big Job, for like series going forward, we're going to be putting out soundtracks to every series. Every series is going to have an accompanying soundtrack. So I've been working with artists to put together this first soundtrack, and all you have to do is understand the two copyrights, right? On a publishing perspective, like from a publishing standpoint, producers typically get 50%. The writers of the song typically get 50%. On the masters, that's a different conversation, right? The way we're doing it for Cuddle Season is 20's going to the producer, 40's going to the artist, and 40's going to us, because we're putting up all the money to do all of this. We're promoting it heavily through our platforms. So we feel that 40% makes a lot of sense for us. Now, an artist can fully say like, hey, that doesn't make a lot of sense, and not do the project, but them clearly laying out like, this is what it is. If you want to be a part of it, we're going to be pushing this hard. It's also, it's not just the song. Hopefully we're going to raise awareness of your brand. We're going to get people to come to you, follow you. Like, there's going to be a lot of positive things that come from this. If you don't see it that way, that's fine. Just pass on the opportunity. But we clearly set it up, right? We're not taking any publishing, 50 to producer, 50 to the artist, master, 40, 40, 20. If you don't like it, boom. That should be how simple this is. But like, people aren't educating themselves on the super basics. And then you go to the internet and get your whole world flipped around because you got a bunch of idiots saying something, somebody saying one thing, the other person saying another thing, and then now you're just in a world of shit and you don't know what's going on. So this is a very simple business. Like, this isn't you're not a physicist, you're not a rocket scientist or rocket scientist or nothing like that. Like, it's pretty simple when you just take a step back. I could teach you everything you need to know about the music business in a week.
Yeah,
I promise you.
That's a lot of people don't understand. Again, royalties. Like, literally yesterday, we just renewed our deal with our artist. Maybe a couple months ago, uploaded his first song. I'm telling my team how to upload it. I'm like, he's like, here are the splits. I'm like, okay, that's on the publishing side. Where are the master splits? He was like, oh, it's the same thing. I said, no, because we're in a 50-50 deal with our artist. If it's the same thing, that means that the producer is going to get more than our share and the artist share. Like, it's not the same. I said, here are the master splits. And a member of my team said, that feels like rape. And I was like, what? I said, if we get $10,000 on a sync, we as the label will get $5,000, the artist will get $5,000, and each of the producers will get $12,500. And then the feature, I was like breaking it down for him. And he was like, and then I said, and then we're going to pay the feature out of our master side, which we don't have to do on a sync. I said, because they got a fee. And he was like, oh, well, I thought sync was a publishing thing. And I was like, it is, but the front end fee is a master side thing. And even in that moment, my friend who also works for our company was like, I had no idea that it was two separate things. Do you know what I'm saying? I get it, because when I started out as a manager, everything we did was 50-50, you know what I'm saying? But then when I became a label owner, it's like, it can't be 50-50 because I'm spending the money to promote this record. My artist has a platform. Why would we split the same money when, respectfully, this is not what Homeboy was saying, futuristic. This is on the master side, not the publishing side. So I want to make that clear. Publishing side, the producers still split 50%. It was two producers. But on the master side, if my artist has a platform and I have an entire team that I'm paying to push this song forward, why the hell would the producer get more money on the master side than me? So when I broke it down for him like that, he was like, oh, I just didn't, you know what I'm saying? But there's a lot of that happening. That's exactly what this sounds like. One, Hitkidd owns the song, so he is the label in this situation. Two, again, if he's making the song go and CMG purchases the right to distribute it, that may be the 50% the 50,000 that Hitkidd got, right? He might have done a deal with CMG. So now they're getting all the past, you know what I'm saying? And then I know Glorilla did a joint with CMG. So I think that, like you said, Dane, it's the basics of the music industry that neither of them understand, but Hitkidd's manager knows what happened, right? Like even, again, with this same artist, when we signed a distro deal, they gave us an upfront marketing budget. We said, producers, what do y'all want? They said, we're cool with just royalties, right? We want to keep our publishing, but we're cool with getting like master royalties if y'all will keep giving them to us at the same rate. I said, I can't give it to you at the same rate, but we're still going to give you 25% of the master, which again is unheard of. Most people don't give producers 25% of the master. A year later, the producer is like, why haven't I still gotten paid yet? I said, oh, well, this artist just recouped. So you're going to start getting checks next month. And he was like, oh, the work that I put in, I spent 18 months. Y'all are trying to rob me. And I'm like, yo, we talked about this up front. This is what you told me you wanted. If you don't understand this, that's fine. But don't make it, I have never in my life tried to rob you. In fact, I sent other artists to you during this time to make custom beats so that you could keep feeding yourself. And you should be trying to feed your, as a producer, you shouldn't be waiting for one artist royalty to feed yourself. You need to have multiple streams of income. But I agree. I think there's a lot of ignorance here. I think that CMG hasn't weighed in because their reputation is on the line. And I think if their artists were to go and sit and talk to them, she would have a deeper understanding of what's going on. I agree with the respect thing. You can tell they both respect each other, but Glow seems to be like, I'm not tripping, I'm making money, so I'm not gonna have no bad blood. And woman to woman, she may never hear this. I'm hoping, Glow, you go look under the hood because you're saying that right now, but as you grow and go, you'll see that you're losing royalties if you don't understand your business, and a lot. Like I have a friend who's managing an artist who's like the biggest singer-songwriter right now, like almost in the world, like beating BTS on the charts, Pink, you know what I'm saying? Like Black, Pink, what is it? Pink, Black, whatever, like killing
Black,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and he said that they were distributing through just a distro company, right? And then they ended up signing a distro with a major just because the major were like, a friend of his was like, hey, the majors can collect more royalties. And when they went and sat down with the major, they were losing around $20K a month on just rights and royalties that weren't getting pulled in, right? So my whole point in that is that Glorilla, like, make sure you audit your team. There's nothing wrong with, hey, what are the numbers looking like? But don't just take at face value that they're doing right by you because your song is going and you're growing. Like, you don't know. You could be missing out on a lot of royalties. It seems more like ignorance, and everybody goes through that. But I don't want her to get hurt in a way that's like she's giving up too much because she doesn't care because she's making money in other ways.
I think part of the problem is like we just use language that just puts people on edge, right? When you start saying rape and when you start saying slave, like, I think that prevents us from getting to the meat of the problem or understanding the facts, right? Because once you start throwing those words out, like people start being on the defense, like, I don't want to be a part of this, like, you know. So I think that prevents us from really understanding the problem in its entirety. So I try to avoid using those words.
Well, thank you, because it's sick to use those words. Incidentally, This is my opinion. It's disgusting to weaponize actual histories of genocide, assault, enslaving humans, forcing you, come on. We're talking about a fucking piece of paper. You're making fucking music.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents. Fuck out of here with that. I don't even want to say those words.
That piece too. But I really just think it puts people on edge, and it's like, once you say that, like, it's just hard to have a constructive conversation. Kind of puts people on the defensive and they just kind of want out. But yeah, so I hope, do you think that maybe Glorilla thought she owned the masters to the, like, even you don't think she, and maybe that's what she communicated to CM, like maybe CMG really thinks that she owns the song.
I think that she might have said I own 50%. She might have, but if CMG looked under the hood, they know Hitkidd owns it, right? Because he has the paperwork for it. So they had to do a deal with him. And then they had to say, hey, we're going to give you this upfront budget because this song is going. So she might have thought because she got in advance that she did own the song. But I feel like even in her wording, she didn't allude to any of that. Do you know what I'm saying? So she may have a misunderstanding around what ownership looks like with the song, but the only people who were saying own were Hitkidd and his manager. But even Hitkidd's manager said that she sold her song, and he was saying sold because it's like you can't sell something that you don't own. You know what I'm saying? So she might think that, but I didn't see. I think that.
So, but you could sell your percentage, right? Like,
I think that's even harder. It's hard. The way that this is laid out, I think it's harder. But yes, that's what she did. She sold her percentage, but Hitkidd, the original master owner, had to license it to them before she could sell her. Because even though she may get a 50-50 rev share, she doesn't own the master. You know what I'm saying? So it's like Hitkidd, regardless, still would have had to approve it. So it's not like she sold it without their permission. She might have sold, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a little sticky right there because if she doesn't own the master, she couldn't have sold it.
And we really do. I mean, this is why we would, if the manager's out there, we'd love to speak to him and just really see.
Please come on the MEC.
Yeah, because who owns the song and who owns what? Again, there are 2 copyrights to each song. So maybe Hitkidd owns 100% of the master. Maybe they split the royalties 50-50. Maybe they both split the composition, underlying composition evenly. Maybe they did do an even 50-50 split. But here's the thing. It's kind of like a feature, right? When you buy a feature from a rapper, you think, okay, cool, I'm good. I paid them their $10,000. You got to clear it if they're signed to a major. Not exactly the same with this situation, but say Aaron and I make a song, and it's called Excellence, of course. And we split it 50-50, everything. We're doing everything jointly, right? And it goes viral. Aaron's off on tour, hanging out the window with her ratchet ass friends. I'm still in Madison making beats all day. And some label wants to pick it up, but they probably aren't going to approach me because Aaron's the star. So they approach Aaron, they want to sign her. And they say, hey, we want to sign you for $500,000. And Aaron says, cool, where do I sign? $500,000 is great. She signs. No one is discussing what's under the hood because it goes against everyone's interest to discuss that at that point. They want to get Aaron to sign as quickly as possible. Now, the contract, let's say it's totally standard. And I don't have any reason to believe that CMG is creating terrible. I have no idea, but I'm just going to assume the best and assume it's a traditional contract. Is a traditional contract great? No. Is it common? Is it virtually everybody's deal? Yes. So Aaron signs this contract, right? Even though she and I both own half the song, the label can't now assume ownership of the song just because Aaron signed something. I still am a player. I still have equity in the song. They have, even if I only own 1% of the song, they would still have to come back to me and have that conversation and clear it with me and license it or purchase it from me. So regardless, people who co-create music both have to sign off on a sync, on anything. And so that's why, unfortunately, a lot of people that I work with, or not that I work with, but that try to work with me will say things like, well, I want to buy out your master. I want to buy out everything. So I have all the power and I can move without, getting held up. It's like, no, you don't get to move without being held up. That's twice as fucked up because on the one hand, you're taking all equity away from me, and 2, you're taking all input away from me. So you're basically taking what I have, creating adding your stuff onto it and then considering it 100% yours. From a creativity side, that feels terrible. From a human side, that feels terrible. And then from a business side, that's really stupid. That means all the deals that come in, they can do whatever they want, misrepresent you, do things against your best interests, blah, blah, blah. So create, and I'm not saying that people don't sign away their rights and equity in music they create. It happens all the time. But again, with a label is going to want to own the masters. This is where Twitter comes in and the internet. No one understands what master ownership is unless you're really in the music business. Master ownership is like the buzzword. That's when people say, oh, it's slavery. Everyone's masters are owned by a label if they're signed by a label. People go independent. Independent labels own your masters too. Some contracts have master reversion clauses. The vast majority don't. And so you always hear about people saying, well, you got to buy back your masters. Why? The labels are taking your masters. They own you. No, they don't. They own one copyright from which they pay you out royalties. It's a never-ending, ridiculous conversation.
I mean, that's essentially the record label business, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why they are a business. But the other thing that I would say is like, I don't want to make it seem like it's just a or it may be standard now, but it's not norm. You don't have to, like, when you sign a deal with a label, like, hopefully everything that you've already did is yours and stays independent. Like, that's the beauty of that. That's probably what you're going to eat from the most as things get going when you sign with a label. I would protect that as much as possible unless they're giving you fair value, right? I mean, if they're dropping a shitload of money for anything that you've already put out, because why would you sign that over? Like, you already made it successful. Obviously they can put a lot more fuel on the fire, but if they don't compensate you to whatever you think is fair, hopefully you have somebody in your team that can like properly calculate what fair value is. Like, I tell artists to put out as much music as possible before you sign, so that it can become more valuable because you own that. Ideally you don't sign it away. That was a conversation I had with what's the cat's name? I might be pronouncing it wrong. Anyway, he's doing really well. And I had a conversation with him. I think I met him through like one of the contests we used to do, maybe the Funk Volume contest or something. And he signed, and he has like a shitload of streams. He's doing well. But I told him before he signed, I was like, look, bro, that the label is still going to be there. Like, start putting out more music. Like, you don't have that much music out. Like, start putting out more music independently, just like Russ did, essentially. That's why Russ makes so much money, because he really only put out two. I know one for sure.
Three.
I thought he only put out two albums, like, actually on Columbia, right? Everything else, he makes so much money from, because that's all him, and he produced most of it too. So
I think we should note that people like Russ had leverage, one, because they had a lot of masters, but two, because they had a fan base. Payne, I do want to know, I don't fully agree with you. I do think labels are predatory. I think the music industry is modern day slavery. I don't like when people use that word when they don't know what they're talking about, but I'm seeing deals where labels are giving artists $10,000 and they're in a 1585 recruitment, which means that if you make $100,000, you know what I'm saying, and the label gave you $10,000. If I'm not mistaken, you have to make $95,000 before you see one. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, if you make $100,000, then you get a $5,000 check, or really no, because now it's 15% of that $5,000 you get. Do you know what I'm saying? I do feel like that is slavery, because you're generating everything. And then even them, they make you sign your name and likeness over. So you can't perform under your name without them, and you can't produce anything under your name. So as Dame is saying, to to drop more records. Some artists are in these deals where they can't even drop records independently as who they are. So I think a lot of people do sign shitty slave ship deals and they have no leverage and they're looking for the label to create momentum for them and then they get stuck. So there are a lot of those things out there. I think the old guard is dying with the advent of distributors and hybrid distro deals and things like that. But truth be told, I know people's careers who have gotten sunk, especially maybe even 3 or 4 years ago, like the last 10-year span. You know what I'm saying? Like 2009 to 2019, I've seen especially Black artists, a ton of them leverage their future against a small amount of money, believing that a label was going to take care of them. And they didn't have what the internet is now. They didn't have what social media is now or an understanding of business. So like, yes, Russ survived because he had great business and he had an understanding and leverage, but there's a trail of tears specifically with Black and brown artists who have gotten on that slave ship and never gotten off. So I do want to mention that I am not somebody that says labels don't own you, because I have seen them own people and their likeness and their future to release music. And that to me does feel like ownership.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm just personally not comfortable calling it slavery or the R word.
Yeah,
but I would. I'm very comfortable calling. You know, there are deals. Well, the vast majority of artists on labels don't succeed, and for those people, they are locked in and they can't move with a degree of freedom within the realm of music. They can do other things, granted, but that's not what they're living and breathing for. So to take that away from someone, I don't disagree that you can create some kind of analogy or metaphor and say this feels like slavery. This is analogous to it. I'm just like.
So I think when people, especially like me, say slavery, we're not talking about they're being whipped and forced to stay there. We're saying that slavery built America and there's not a revenue share that Black people are getting from that. So that's what I'm saying.
That's true.
If you're talking about slave labor, that's what Black people have done to the music industry. We have funded the music industry with our intellectual property, and we have a less than 11% revenue share of it, even though we own the two biggest genres. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about forced labor. I'm talking about the revenue off of our intellectual property that's not being redistributed back to us.
Yes, like sweatshop labor.
No,
I guess it's more of a, you're not forced to be here. Like it's not that you don't have another way of making money, because I do think anybody can go out and make their future. It's that what you contributed to and what you built is not feeding you, like the plantation.
That's a fair point. I agree with that.
Cool. I mean, we have a little bit more time. Maybe this second topic we could just cover really fast. I'm not too familiar with this artist, Steve Lacy. I keep hearing his name, so I'm assuming that he's doing his thing and
he's the bass player from the internet.
Okay, dope. So there was a clip that went viral of him at a show and people were singing along, but they stopped as soon as the viral piece of the song was over, right? They didn't know the rest of the words. And don't get me wrong, I know that there are diehard fans out there that go to shows that still know all of the words to songs. I'm sure if you go to a Kendrick show, a Cole show, like people that have like these very strong community, even La Russell, if you go to a La Russell show, you're going to hear people reciting the words, Snow the Product, all these people have. But I just think it's an interesting time that we live in, that you don't know more of the song, but you'll still buy a ticket to a show. Like, how did that happen? Like, how did you buy a ticket to a show? Because you would think that, okay, I'm familiar with this song. I love this song. I play it all. Now I want to go to a show. Like, how did we get to a show before we learned the whole song? Like, how? I just think it's an interesting time.
I still don't know Nuck If You Buck, and I listen to Crime Mob. I don't know all of it. I only know Diamond's part in the hook. You know what I'm saying?
Are you going to the show? Are you buying a
Yes,
ticket to the you're
I
buying
saw,
a ticket to the show?
I saw Crime Mob 3 years ago, and it was one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life.
And you bought the ticket. It was just Crime Mob, and you bought the
No,
ticket
it
to the
was
show.
Red Bull Sound Select, but I'm saying Crime Mob was there, and they're part of the reason I wanted to go. I was like,
I'm not saying that they weren't part of the but I think I mean, obviously it's happening, so I'm out of the loop. But like, I don't know any artist that I would pay a ticket for, and I only know like a hook of a song or like a part of a song. Like there's no artist for me where that's the case. Like, but I think
agree with that. I get that because you're like, you only know part of one song and you bought a ticket. Now, I think that may be for people who want more TikTok moments or more Instagram moments. It's like you heard it on TikTok, then they advertise to you on TikTok that they're coming to town, and now you want to get that viral moment from the song, a video of it, so that you can say that you were there. So I think that's what it is. I agree with you. If I don't know somebody's music, I'm not buying a ticket.
But I'm not bringing this up to knock it. I'm bringing this up to learn for like how can other people, because it's typically, and we've talked about this in the past, like it's hard to get people to come out of their house and go to a show, especially with like ticket prices and all these extra damn fees. A $10 ticket turns into an $18 ticket. Like it's expensive. So the fact that Steve Lacy, and it wasn't a small room, it was like a packed room. Like the fact that he can get people out, like what else is he doing on social media to build these relationships to a point where people will come out of that? Like, what else is happening? That's what I'm trying to learn. I'm not knocking it at all.
Okay, wait a minute though. He has the number one song in the country, not on a genre specific chart. He has the number one song on the Billboard Hot 100 over Harry Styles, over Morgan, the racist dude, over One Republic, over Nicki Minaj, over Drake, over Doja Cat, over Lizzo, everybody. So,
but why don't people know? Like, why don't? And maybe it's just specific to this one room. It's a one-off. Maybe it's a random. Like, it just so happened to happen this one night. Like,
I think it's just that song, though. I'm gonna say I'm a Steve Lacy fan. Even the song that's blowing up, I can't quite get why people love it, to be respectfully. Okay. I have been a fan of Steve Lacy for ages. Like his brother used to work at BMI. I'm friends with his brother. I used to see the internet every time I came to South by Southwest. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big fan of Sid. So to me, okay, for instance, Steve Lacy tickets in the cities that I was crossing with him while I've been on the road were all sold out. So I would have gone. I wouldn't have known that song. I would have been in that video the whole time, like, because I heard the new album. Respectfully, this is no shot. Respectfully, it was my least favorite album that he's dropped, but I love Steve Lacy. And he's a character on stage. He's phenomenal at wooing the crowd. He's very unique and left of center. So like as a visual and sonic and like performative experience, Steve Lacy is more than just a music maker. So I can vouch for him with that. And I can say that I would have gone to the concert. So having big rooms is not because of that one song. Steve Lacy has a cult following. I think because that song is so big, so many people know that little part, he might have gotten a few people, even maybe a third of the room, who bought it just because that song is number one. But that's like radio shows. Have you ever been to those radio shows and they put these artists on stage, they'll perform 4 tracks and then they'll get to their last song. And then everybody's like, oh, that's who this is. And then everybody sings the words to that one song. And then those people get off stage. First time I saw Post Malone, he had a 3-song set opening for Justin Bieber. He played White Iverson, some random song, and then White Iverson. He knew what people were coming for because he had nobody knew who he was aside from White Iverson. So for me, it's like, it's not just the TikTok era. That was 8 years ago or 9 years ago when I saw Post Malone. And it was like that. Like, oh, when he played it, we were like, dang, he opened with that. And then he closed with it. And everybody's like, all right, cool. We can rock with Post Malone. You know what I'm saying? So I think I don't want to necessarily categorically place this as a terrible thing. I think this is the way the music industry goes. It just so happens that TikTok is the new radio.
Yeah, but I think it's different. I think it's different, right? Like I think TikTok has created something different. I mean, of course, like before we might only know hooks, but we got a chance to listen to the whole song, right? On TikTok, we're not even, unless we go to the song, we're not given a chance to listen to the whole song. Before, the hook just stood out to us because that's the part of a song that typically stands out to us first, right? So I think it is morphing the way we are experiencing music and songs. And you know, again, I'm not upset at this. I typically would just want to understand it and maybe take advantage of it with future artists that we're working with. And I just think it's better to know what's going on so you have more control, and like the ideas that you come up with can like take advantage of what's happening as opposed to just, you know, sitting back getting upset. Right. So no, I just think it's interesting. And then the internet, this is like odd future offspring, right? Like
I was about to say, for Tyler the Creator fan, Steve Lacy is the R&B GOAT, like for sure.
So yeah, I mean, people need to do a documentary on Odd Future because
everyone has enjoyed amazing careers, and just going from Steve Lacy to Sid to Tyler to Earl to Frank Ocean, it's so diverse sonically and in terms of the fan base, honestly, and in terms of their career trajectories. It's like they all shot out in entirely different directions, yet succeeded in each of those arenas. So I think can we name another group that's had a similar kind of success story? I mean,
Wu-Tang maybe, but like,
yeah.
That was literally who came to my head. I think Wu-Tang and Dungeon Family. I'm from Atlanta. So
okay, yeah, Dungeon Family.
I feel like Dungeon Family, their effects are still reverberating.
Because you had like Outkast on one hand, and then Future on the other hand, and then
was Dungeon Family ever a group like that? Like
they released albums. They used to have a TV show. I was literally talking about this last night, Live in the Dungeon. That was on like GPTV in Atlanta. Like it was like basically public broadcasting. They dropped albums, they would tour together, but like the things that spawned from there, like I think Dungeon Family could give Odd Future a run for their money, to be honest, because they created the sound of Atlanta, and it's the sound of hip hop to me.
There should be a Hall of Fame for that though, just because, you know, if we start talking about groups where individuals went off and did their own thing, like now we're getting into Wu-Tang and Public Enemy and Dungeon Family. Like we're not talking about groups that come along often. We're talking about like every decade has one or two of them. So that's pretty amazing.
New Edition. Them guys did their thing. I would put them in the conversation.
I do make a correction. I think Steve Lacy is the guitar player for the internet. I think it's something Matt Martians is the bass player for the internet, whose brother works at BMI. So that just came back to me. Just making a correction.
Martian has his own thing going on too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I never really got an opportunity. I mean, to like really appreciate Odd Future because Hobson took a swing at Tyler like super early.
I didn't know that. Did he really?
For no reason. I mean, that was one of his bigger videos. Like that year, like when I think it's Illmind Hobson 4, where he goes at Tyler for really no reason. It was just because like people kept comparing him to him. And then, so he like, that video where Tyler eats the roach. So like Hobson created his own version of that. That was probably one of the bigger mistakes that Hop made, was going like, cause partnering with Tyler, like being cool with Tyler could have made Hobson cool by association. Right. Cause I think Tyler is what Hobson would love to be, just somebody just comfortable in their own skin, making dope music and being loved, by stadiums. So I think that was like a big mistake in my opinion.
I want to be Tyler the Creator if that's what
I mean, he's got a festival, like he's doing the damn thing, like he's one of the biggest artists that we have, and he's got a crazy fan base. and he's a dope artist. Like, he's a really dope artist. So anyway, we can wrap it up. I know we're close to an hour.
Well, once again, appreciate you tuning in. I'm live every single Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on beatstars.live for Looped In. Join the Excellence Academy. Excellence Academy. Damn it, Excellence Academy, not .biz.
Yeah, the Excellence Academy.
.biz.
Yep.
Oh, I had it this time and I psyched myself out because I never get it right. All right, excellenceacademy.biz. Join that. I would still oh shit, someone's at the door. This is a perfect time to wrap up. We still want to be guests. I gotta give someone a check. Appreciate you tuning in. Love both of you. Shout out to everyone that tunes in. Appreciate you. Peace.